On today's episode, we review the toughest mudder season with a deep dive into the numbers and statistics of the 4 races so far, and interviews with Tom Tweddell, Lachlan Dansie, and Kristopher Mendoza. This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome back to the world's toughest podcast. My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. I know you've heard me say we are the number 1 rated OCR podcast in the world. The only reason we can say that is because we are the only ones who can say that. Those ratings are left by listeners to the show, just like you. I can't make us number 1. Only you can do that with your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thank you. Today on the show, as promised, we are going to talk about the toughest mudder season so far. And we're going to talk to 3 podium-winning men from Toughest Mudder UK, Midlands, Toughest Mudder Australia, and Toughest Mudder Midwest. Tom Tweddell finished second at Toughest Mudder UK Midlands. Lachlan Dansie finished first at Toughest Mudder Australia. And Kristopher Mendoza finished second at Toughest Mudder Midwest. I know what you're thinking. You just talked with Mendoza like 2 episodes ago. And I know, you're right. But he's a really nice guy. The man is so nice, I had to call him twice. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter at @thewillhicks. And you can find us on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast. You can be a part of the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Amazon, and I will read it on a future episode. Just as a reminder, you can now listen to the show on your Amazon Alexa device, or Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, which is what most of you listen on. There are about 100 different ways to listen to the show. Apple Podcasts and Spotify are number 1 and 2 by a large margin. But Alexa is growing. Before we talk toughest mudder, let's talk some tough mudder news. This past weekend was the TMX World Championships. There was no live streaming allowed because the race will be televised on CBS in July. I'll talk more about that in a minute. I was not there in person, but we had people there running our Instagram stories, and they crushed it for us with coverage of the race. Instagram stories are the best thing to happen to coverage of obstacle course races since ORM and Mud Run Guide started publishing race recaps. Time out, guys. I had a whole segment on race recaps here, but this episode got way too long. Check your podcast feed for a bonus content episode. It is full of deleted scenes from this episode, like DVDs used to have. So let's talk about the TMX results. I'm going to share these TMX results with you as part of an implied contract. If you listen to these names, you are party to our implied contract. Do you know what an implied contract is? When you go out to dinner at a restaurant, you sit down at your booth, they give you a menu, you order off the menu, they bring you food, you eat your food. At the end of the meal, they bring you a check. And you say, "What? I never agreed to this. I never said I was going to pay for this food." Well, actually, you did, because it's part of an implied contract. And that is enforceable. So I'm going to share these TMX results with you as part of a implied contract. If you listen to these names, I expect you to watch all 3 episodes of the TMX finals on CBS this July. July 14th, 21st and 28th. If we want OCR on TV, we need to watch OCR on TV. TMX on CBS this July. Your 2018 TMX Men's World Champion is Hunter McIntyre. Your 2018 TMX Women's World Champion is Emma Chapman. This is Hunter's second year as the TMX champion. Hunter won the inaugural TMX World Championship last year in Minnesota, as well as both TMX events this year in Sacramento and Miami. Hunter has won every TMX event that has ever been held. This is Emma Chapman's first year competing in TMX and her first obstacle course race ever. Emma comes from a background in CrossFit, where she has competed at a high level. Emma is from New Zealand, although she currently lives in West Virginia. The rest of the podium for the men, in second place was Jacob Hepner, and in third place was Dakota Rager. Dakota Rager. That is an awesome name, Dakota. Well done, Mr. and Mrs. Rager. For the women, in second place was Corinna Coffin, and in third place was Cassidy Lance. Second place woman I just mentioned was Corinna Coffin. You recognize Corinna's name. She's been a guest on our show before. She won the championship last year, and like Hunter, she also won the open events in Miami and Sacramento this year. This is the first TMX event that the first place woman was not Corinna Coffin. We'll have some more TMX coverage in July when the race airs on CBS. You have promised me you will watch. Do not welch. Hang on 1 second. I need to check something. Okay, I just checked with a lawyer friend of mine. He's a lawyer, but that's the only bar he's ever passed, if you know what I mean. He says I can't enforce that contract, so whatever. You still better watch TMX this July. So TMX was last weekend. This weekend in Whistler, British Columbia, Tough Mudder had the second race in the 5-race Tougher Mudder Championship Series. Tougher Mudder is the competitive first wave on Saturday mornings of Tough Mudder event weekends. This was the West Regional Championship. The East Regional was held in Philadelphia last month. There's also a Central Regional and a European Regional coming up in the next few months, leading up to the Tougher Mudder World Championship in Seattle on September 22nd. Do you remember who your reigning Tougher Mudder World Champions are? Your 2017 World Champions? You guys watched Frozen? You know that part at the beginning where the red-haired princess is singing to the blonde princess, and she's like, "Do you want to build a snowman?" And there's a song, and part of the song goes, that's my daughter's favorite part, when the clock is like. Your 2017 Tougher Mudder World Champions, your reigning champions, are Hunter McIntyre and Nicole Miracle. That was last year. This year, your Tougher Mudder West regional champions are, for the women, Lindsay Webster, and for the men, Ryan Atkins. In addition to being the men's and women's regional champions this weekend, Ryan and Lindsay also happen to be married. Every once in a while, you'll hear someone talk about OCR power couples. That's not a thing. There are no OCR power couples. There is a OCR power couple. It's Ryan and Lindsay. That's the end of the list. Don't at me. Now, there are several couples that run races and are together, and they do well at races, but power couple is a pretty strong term. Jay-Z and Beyonce are a power couple. Mark Antony and Cleopatra are a power couple. You and your girlfriend that both won terrain race last Sunday are not a power couple. Your Tougher Mudder West Regional Championship podium is, for the women, in first, Lindsay Webster, finishing the 10 miles in 1 hour and 32 minutes. In second, Allison Ty in 1 hour, 37 minutes. And in third, Michelle Ford in 1 hour and 49 minutes. I do a little bit of show prep for each episode, getting the mileage and the times and the results together before I sit down with the microphone and talk to you. And as I was looking up the times for the women, I saw something I have never seen before. Lindsay Webster, the Mrs. Ryan Atkins, registered for the race as Lindsay Atkins. That is, to my knowledge, that's the first time she's raced under her married name. It's not that big of a deal, but I thought it was interesting. You women are a good sport for changing your name when you marry us men. I can't imagine having to change your name every time you get married. For the men, the podium was, in first, Ryan Atkins, Mr. Webster, in 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 12 seconds. In second, Kristopher Swanson, in 1 hour and 13 minutes and 37 seconds. And in third, Sean Stevens Whale, in 1 hour, 14 minutes, and 9 seconds. Those times are close together. First through third place were separated by only 57 seconds. Second place was 25 seconds behind Ryan Atkins. I said on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast, I could talk about this podium for an hour. And I could. I'm not joking. I don't even need a guest. I could go a whole episode just talking about those 6 athletes. Really, those 5. I don't know the second place man, Kristopher Swanson. I know he's from Canada. I know he's friends with Sean Stevens Whale. And I know he's fast. 25 seconds behind Atkins in a 10-mile race is nothing to sneeze at. But the other 5 athletes, first of all, that whole podium, those 6 athletes, is peak Canada and peak Tough Mudder. Those other 5 athletes have been a big part of the competitive Tough Mudder scene for the last year and even the years before that. Another thing, they're all Canadian, all 6 of them. That's great, man. I'm glad you guys swept your podium. I'm a big fan of Canada. I don't know why, but I am. Let's talk about the podium athletes for a sec. In first place, Ryan Atkins. He has won the 24-hour World's Toughest Mudder 5 years in a row. He has won Toughest Mudder 6 times, every time he has raced it. He has never lost a race 8 hours or longer. He also placed second at the inaugural TMX World Championships in 2017. The first place woman, Lindsay Webster Atkins, has won 3 8-hour Toughest Mudders and podiumed at 2 more. The second place woman, Allison Ty, has won 3 Toughest Mudders, podiumed at 4 more. She podiumed at last year's Tougher Mudder World Championship, and she finished second at World's Toughest Mudder twice, including this past year in 2017. The third place woman, Michelle Ford, placed second at 2017's Canada's Toughest Mudder. She placed third at 2017's World's Toughest Mudder, and she finished third at TMX Sacramento this year. Michelle is the only woman. There's only 2 people who have done this, 1 man, 1 woman. Michelle is the only woman with podium finishes at TMX, Tougher Mudder, Toughest Mudder, and World's Toughest Mudder. Atkins is the only man with those 4 podiums. They are the only 2 members of the World's Toughest Podcast, QuadSquad. To join the QuadSquad, you need podiums at TMX, Tougher, Toughest, and World's Toughest. There's a few other people who are close. Hunter McIntyre needs a toughest podium to join the QuadSquad. Sarah Knight, Allison Ty, and Rhea Coble need a TMX podium to join the QuadSquad. Good luck, you guys. If you guys have an idea for how we should recognize the QuadSquad, let me know. Maybe you have some Photoshop skills. Oh, and your third place man. Sean Stevens-Whale. He has 2 toughest mudder podiums, including Canada last year, and a second place to Atkins at Toughest Mudder South this year in Texas. Sean Stevens-Whale, he and Atkins hung together for 30 or 35 miles in Texas before Atkins pulled away. It was a good race. Congratulations to everyone who ran Tough Mudder Whistler, but especially those podium winners and ambassadors for the sport. Well done, fellas, ladies. Speaking of congratulations, I want to talk a little non-Tough Mudder news for a minute.
This is madness!
This is not madness. This is race results. Last week, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, was the OCR WC 24-hour Enduro Championships in Australia. The winners were 2 people you know from listening to our show here, Lachlan Dansie and our own Allison Ty. Lachlan and Allison also won Australia's Toughest Mudder about a month ago. This is the 4th year in a row Lachlan has won the Enduro 24-hour race. You could say he is the Ryan Atkins of Australia. For Allison Ty, this was her first win of a 24-hour race. She's finished in second 2 times at World's Toughest Mudder and in third at the Spartan Race 24-hour Ultra Beast in Iceland that's held in December. Allison Ty is the only person in the world to podium at the 3 biggest 24-hour OCR races in the world. You could call it a trifecta. Matt B. Davis came up with trifecta, and it makes me furious that I didn't think of it first. So good. Well done, Matt. And Allison's trifecta of podiums all came within the last 6 months. Also, congratulations to Robert Killian and Orla Walsh on winning the Spartan Stadium Sprint in Dallas this weekend. Robert Killian is the only man not named Ryan Atkins to run 100 miles at World's Toughest Mudder more than once. He's run 100 and 105. He ran a 105 this last year. Orla Walsh finished second at TMX Miami. She was a guest on our show this year. And she's been dominant on the Spartan Stadium series this year. And congratulations to Rhea Coble for her second place finish in the Broken Arrow Sky Race this weekend. Rhea is the women's World's Toughest Mudder reigning champion. She finished the 52-kilometer, 32-mile-plus mountain trail race in second place with a time of 5 hours and 48 minutes. Rhea's next race is the Spartan Super in Chicago this upcoming weekend. The race is part of the Spartan U.S. Championship Series. It's a big race. If Rhea wins that race, she will control her destiny going into the final race of the series in Utah on July 28th. You know who else is running in that Spartan Super this weekend? Ryan Atkins. You know who needs to win that Spartan Super? Ryan Atkins. Let me break down the last 3 weeks of Ryan Atkins' life for you. 3 weeks ago, Atkins raced Toughest Mudder South in Texas and won with 50 miles. 2 weeks ago, on 5 days rest, Atkins raced TMX. This week, he raced Tougher Mudder Whistler and won. Next week, he races the Spartan Super in Chicago against a stacked field, including Ryan Woods and Ryan Kent, who both need to win that race just as much as Atkins does to win the Spartan US Series in Utah.
But I'm not done yet.
But I'm not done yet.
But I'm not done yet.
After Atkins races the Chicago Super on Saturday morning, he will jump on a plane and fly to Boston to run the Boston Toughest Mudder that night. I am not making that up. Ryan Atkins has never lost a race 8 hours or longer. He is the greatest endurance OCR athlete on the planet right now. I will not pick against Ryan Atkins or bet against Ryan Atkins in any race 8 hours or longer. But If at some point there were to be a fluke, crazy occurrence, and Atkins were to not finish in first place at a toughest mudder, this weekend is when it would happen. When he's been racing every weekend in big races, every weekend for the past month, and when he just ran a huge race less than 24 hours earlier and had to take a plane ride from Chicago to Boston, which is not just down the street. Robert Killian will be at Toughest Mudder Boston. Robert has finished second to Ryan Atkins multiple times at endurance events like this. Robert finished second to Atkins at Toughest Mudder Canada last year. Robert and his team finished second to Ryan and his team at World's Toughest Mudder in 2016. Robert finished second to Atkins at World's Toughest Mudder 2017. Robert got 105 miles to Ryan's 110 miles. Killian has beaten Atkins before at Spartan races, which are much shorter, but it's not a crazy thing to say. I'm not saying Killian is going to beat Atkins at Toughest Mudder Boston this weekend, but I'm not saying it. If it's going to happen, if Atkins is going to lose a race this year, all I'm saying is this is the weekend to stay up late and watch the race coverage overnight. Follow us at World's Toughest Podcast on Instagram or The Will Hicks on Twitter for race updates. That's this Saturday night, June 23rd, 2018. So when I was looking for those sound clips of Billy Mays saying, "I'm not done yet,"
But I'm not done yet.
I got caught in one of those like YouTube time warps where you just start watching YouTube videos and clicking the next YouTube video. I probably watched 40 minutes of Billy Mays infomercial commercials, and I'm not exaggerating at all. That man was good at his job. He did not like, as I learned on YouTube last night, he did not like the ShamWow guy, though.
Hi, it's Vince with ShamWow. You'll be saying wow every time you use this towel.
They had beef. They did not like each other. Billy Mays passed away in 2009. He was 50 years old. Someone wrote online, I bet he's up in heaven partying like it's 1999. One more congratulations, and then I want to talk about OCR on TV for a minute. This final congratulations is for one of our listeners who is about to win a free pair of Merrell trail running shoes. We don't really do ads on our show, at least right now. That may change in the future, but it's not really our thing. When I talk with guests, I do ask them if they have any sponsors or anything they'd like to plug, because that helps the sponsors, it helps the athletes, and it helps the sport. And once in a while, I talk about a product I like my Mud Gear socks or the pickle juice I get on Amazon that for cramps during a race. But there's only one company or brand or group of people that I've really chosen to partner with on the show, and that is Merrell. Merrell makes trail running shoes. I've told the story before about how we came to work with Merrell. My first pair of Tough Mudder shoes was a beat-up old pair of white Adidas running shoes because I didn't want to get my good shoes muddy. I used them for 2 or 3 Tough Mudders. And after I'd been there for a couple events, I started looking around and I saw that there were people that weren't slipping and sliding everywhere. And I said, if I'm going to keep doing this, I've got to get myself some real shoes for this stuff. So at that point, I was still new and I didn't really know what I was doing. I bought a pair of Salomon Speedcross 3s. And they were fine. No complaints. But after a while, I started to wear a hole through the top of the shoes where my little toe, your pinky toe, touches the underside of the top of the shoe. And on both left and right, they were wearing through. I had holes in my shoes the size of a quarter where I could see my little toe. So I had to replace them. So I got another pair, same shoes. They were fine. So I got another pair of them. But something changed between the time I bought my first pair and the time I bought my second pair. And that second pair of shoes did not fit me right. Like, no matter how much I wore them, how much I ran in them, I kept getting blisters. And so I thought, maybe it was a fluke. So I got a different pair of Salomon's. Same problem. I couldn't run in them without getting blisters. So I got shoes from a different company. Same problem. I could not run in them without getting blisters. I got another pair, too narrow. I went through probably 4 or 5 different pair of trail running shoes. And I started to get worried. I thought, maybe I just got lucky the first time I bought a pair of shoes. Why can't I find shoes that work for my feet? And that was about the time that Merrell started working with Tough Mudder. I want to say it was about 2 years ago. And so I thought, well, shoot, I'll give those a shot. What's the harm in trying? So I got a pair of the Merrell Tough Mudder All-Out Crush, like the official Tough Mudder branded Merrell running shoe. And they were great. I ran World's Toughest Mudder 2016 in that first pair of All-Out Crushes. And then in 2017, when we started the podcast, after we were a few episodes in, and I had built up some confidence to approach a major company like Merrell, I reached out to them and I said, hey, would you guys like to work with us? You guys sponsor Tough Mudder. We're, focusing on World's Toughest Mudder. Maybe you could give out some shoes to listeners of our show. And they said, we would love to do that. In fact, because you're focusing on World's Toughest Mudder, we would like to give away the Agility Peak Flex. And I said, what is the Agility Peak Flex? I never heard of it. It's a trail running shoe that has more padding than the All-Out Crush. There's other differences, but for me, that's the most important. So I said, great. So I got on Amazon, and I bought myself a pair of them, so I knew what I was talking about. And I have worn those I've worn them in every Tough Mudder I've done since then. They're really good for the toughest and World's Toughest Mudder. If you're more into Tough Mudder, the 10 miles or shorter, Tough Mudder half, 5K, if you do TMX, you probably want the All-Out Crush. But for Toughest Mudder, World's Toughest Mudder, I've run 5 Toughest Mudders in my Agility Peak Flex, and they did great for me last year at World's Toughest Mudder when I was in the pit area, and I will be wearing them at World's Toughest Mudder this year in Atlanta. This story is turning out longer than I planned. So that's my shoe story, and that's why I am happy to work with Merrell. One more reason, and then we're going to give away a pair of shoes. If we want companies to invest in the sport of obstacle course racing, we need to support the companies that support our sport. We need to reward the companies that are intentional about investing and marketing in OCR. The companies that sponsor our pro athletes, like Ray Coble.
5 stars.
Or Kristopher Mendoza.
5 stars.
Or Ryan Atkins.
Ooh, baby, that's going to be spicy.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a lot to say that I am a fan of Merrell. I like their shoes. I like the people behind the company. And I like the way they conduct their business. So, which lucky listener is going to win a new pair of Merrell trail running shoes? This month's winner is Aaron Broadfoot. Congratulations, Aaron. Look for an email from me in the next couple of days. If you'd like the chance to win a free pair of Merrell trail running shoes like Aaron Broadfoot, text the word tough to the number 22828. That's the word tough to the number 22828. If you are outside the U.S., or if you are still paying 10 cents per text message, send me an email at worldstoughestpodcast@gmail.com with Merrell in the subject line. In the body, put your name, your email address, and your phone number. Either way you enter, you'll be added to our winners list, and I may occasionally email you. I will not spam you, and I will not email you regularly, I promise. Can we talk about OCR on TV for a minute? This is a point of concern for me. NBC did not renew Spartan's TV deal for their U.S. Championship Series. Broken Skull Ranch, that Hunter McIntyre and Corinna Coffin were the reigning champions of, just got canceled this year. I haven't heard anything about the Spartan reality show, the Ultimate Team Challenge, being renewed yet for their Season 3. The John Cena OCR-ish show, reality show, American Grit. I have not heard from them in a while. They had 2 seasons in the can. Tough Mudder has not announced anything past this November with CBS. And even the stuff they have this year is concerning. Here is what aired on CBS with Tough Mudder over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, in 2016, there was a 1-hour Road to World's Toughest Mudder TV show. There was a 1-hour World's Toughest Mudder show, coverage of the race. And there was a 1-hour after show with interviews of the podium athletes hosted by Amelia Boone. So 2016 had 3 hours of Tough Mudder coverage on CBS. In 2017, there were 2 1-hour TMX shows. There were 4 1-hour Toughest Mudder shows. And there was 1 hour of coverage for World's Toughest Mudder. So 4, 5, 6, 7 hours of coverage on Tough Mudder for CBS last year. The 1 hour Road to World's Toughest Mudder show was broken up into like 12-minute segments, 15-minute segments, and it was put on Amazon. So it still existed, but it was changed and not as widely distributed. And they also had a show on the CW website, the CW Seed, that was about people preparing for a regular Tough Mudder, just a 10-mile non-competitive Tough Mudder, and then they had a 1-hour episode on CW. But that's not really relevant to what we're talking about right now, so we're gonna put that aside. So with CBS last year, 2017 had 7 hours. 2016, 3 hours. 2017, 7 hours. This year, 2018, here's the plan. They have 3 hours of TMX coverage for the TMX finals that happened a few weeks ago. They have 1 hour of Toughest Mudder coverage and 1 hour of World's Toughest Mudder coverage. Clearly, CBS likes TMX, which is great. I'm disappointed that there's not more Toughest Mudder coverage this year. It was originally planned to be 6 hours last year. Every Toughest Mudder was going to be televised. They pulled the toughest coverage. They pulled 2 hours of the toughest coverage and gave that to TMX so that there ended up being only 4 hours last year of toughest coverage. The 4 races that are in the U.S., Europe, and Canada got the short end of that stick. And this year, there's only 1 hour of toughest coverage. And I don't even know what they're going to do with 1 hour of toughest coverage. There's 7 races, 4 races in the U.S., 8 hours long, and they have 1 hour total. They're not going to summarize all 7 races. They're not even going to summarize the 4 U.S. races. That would be terrible television. Here's what they're going to do. They're going to cover the daytime Toughest Mudder in NorCal, near Sonoma, because that'll be easier to cover. Now that I think about it, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to cover the one race, the daytime race in California. Toughest Mudder West. And then, 1 hour of World's Toughest Mudder. I'm disappointed we're losing all the Toughest Mudder coverage, but if giving TMX 3 hours is what it takes to keep World's Toughest Mudder on television every year, then, I'm okay with that. I loved having it on TV on Christmas Day the first year. That was great. Unwrap presents with the kids, get them playing with their Legos and, their My Little Pony, and then you can sit down and watch World's Toughest Mudder. I'm a little concerned about TMX. It was created because of the TV deal with CBS last year. It's been expanded this year, both in TV coverage and in locations because of the CBS deal. If CBS goes away next year and NBC or another network does not pick it up, Netflix, I don't know if Netflix is listening, Reed Hastings. If someone has Reed Hastings' cell phone, shoot me an email, willhicks@gmail.com. Netflix has a reality show, or a Ninja Warrior-esque show called Ultimate Beastmaster. It's like a diet Ninja Warrior. It's fine. But, okay, I'm kind of thinking out loud as we're talking about this. If the TV deal for TMX goes away, I'm afraid that TMX will go away also. And that would be bad for the sport. It would be bad for Tough Mudder. It would be bad for the athletes that, make a big payday off of that one race. What do you think about OCR on television? Let me know. willhicks@gmail.com or on Twitter @TheWillHicks. Before we go in depth with the Toughest Mudder stats, let's read some iTunes reviews. Our first review comes from Fast Thumb. Fast Thumb writes, which is it, 29 or 30 miles? 5 stars. Will, thanks for the heads up on the 2018 America's Toughest Mudder Midwest race results discrepancies. If I wasn't a listener of the podcast, I would have been pretty irked at the WTM check-in this November. Thanks again, and keep up the good work, Wade. Thank you, Wade, for those kind words. Just to say it again, what Wade is talking about with the Toughest Mudder results is this. There are a lot of people who ran in Michigan last week, or a couple weeks ago, with official records of 24 miles or 29 miles, just shy of what you need for contender status. Because all Toughest Mudder mileage is measured in increments of 5, nobody should have 24 miles. It's a mistake. It's a timing or some kind of chip mistake. But it's a mistake. It's not your fault, but it could hurt you when you go to check in for World's Toughest Mudder and they don't have you as a contender, or they don't have your contender bib. They have an open bib for you. It would be much better to take care of it now than in November when you have 1,000 people behind you in line at registration. If there is a problem with your results, email support@toughmudder.com and they will help you out with it. I am not an employee of Tough Mudder, and I have no access to the results. I have no ability to make the changes myself. If your results are incorrect, email support@toughmudder.com. It might take a day or two for them to get back with you, but they will help you out. Wade, thank you for that reminder, and congratulations, hitting 30 miles and earning your contender status for World's Toughest Mudder. Well done, Wade. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like Wade Fast Thumbs, you can leave a review also. On your iPhone or iPad, open the Purple Podcast app and search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click our logo and then click on Write a Review. On Android, go to Amazon.com and search for World's Toughest Podcast. Click Enable Skill and then click Write a Customer Review. And I will read it on a future episode. Thank you for writing a review for the show. Let's talk Toughest Mudder. As I'm recording, there have been 4 Toughest Mudder races held so far this year. Toughest Mudder is an 8-hour race on a 5-mile looped course. The man and woman who complete the most laps in 8 hours are the winners. We've already talked about all the winners and even the top 5 in each race's individual recap episode. You can find those discussions in our backlog of episodes under How I Won Australia's Toughest Mudder or How I Won Toughest Mudder South. We're not going to go in depth on the winners today. Our focus is going to be on the main field of runners. How many runners were at each race? How many people reached 25 miles? How many men reached 30 and got contender? How many women reached 25 and got contender? And, of course, the big question, which toughest is the toughest? So let's talk about the 4 toughest races that are in the can. Toughest Mudder South was held in Texas on May 6th, 2018. Toughest Mudder UK Midlands was held on May 13th. Toughest Mudder Australia was held on May 20th, and Toughest Mudder Midwest was held in Michigan on June 3rd. We're going to start with South on May 6th and go through chronologically, and then we'll compare and contrast them to each other at the end when we're done. We're also going to talk with some of the podium athletes from the UK, Australia, and Midwest after we talk about their respective race. The first Toughest Mudder of 2018 was America's Toughest Mudder South. 413 runners started the race. Let's talk about the men. 321 men ran. 42 men ran 30 miles. 13% of the men qualified as contenders. 92 women ran. 29 women ran 25 miles. 32% of women qualified as contenders. 71 of 413 qualified as contenders, or 17%. Let's talk about the second Toughest Mudder of 2018. Europe's Toughest Mudder, UK, Midlands. Overall, 737 runners started the race. 655 men ran. 131 men ran 30 miles. 20% of men qualified as contenders. 82 women ran Toughest Mudder UK. 29 women ran 25 miles. 35% of women qualified as contenders. 160 of 737 total qualified as contenders at Toughest Mudder UK, or 22%. Tom Tweddell finished in second place at Europe's Toughest Mudder UK. He ran 45 miles in 7 hours and 23 minutes, finishing 1 minute behind the first place Tristan Steed. Tristan and Tom went out for their 50-mile lap, but neither were able to complete the lap before 8:30, so the 45-mile lap result stood. It's time to talk with Tom Tweddell. Let's go to the phones. Tom Tweddell, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tom, you got second place at Europe's Toughest Mudder this weekend with 45 miles. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We're talking on Monday, a day or a day and a half after the race. How do you feel?
Tired, got some sore legs, but yeah, I feel great. I think coming second makes it a lot easier.
Makes it easier how?
I can the pain of the sore legs. It just makes it all feel worth it.
Tell me about the race. How did it go for you?
So it started off really well because the first hour there's like no obstacles open, so it was great to get a quick lap in. And I was up the front with two other guys, Tristan and Connor. Were all sort of running around the same pace. Came through the first lap together. Continued the second, and then we started to split up a little bit. For the first 4 hours, I felt very comfortable, just getting across all the obstacles, maintaining the same pace. But after 4 hours, that's when it started to take its toll. The pace slowed a little bit, but I managed to keep going and kept chipping away. And then coming to around the 7th and 8th lap, it really got painful then. It was my first endurance event, so it was a big step into the unknown for me. And after that, it was a very painful grind out to the finish till the 9th lap.
You said this was your first endurance event. What's the longest you've run before this?
The longest I run before this was I was on a race that was 4 hours earlier this year, but my longest training run was about 2 hours and 20 minutes. So nothing compared to 8 hours, really.
Tell me about the weather. I saw there was a lot of rain when you guys were starting.
Yeah, it rained for the first half, so for about 4 to 5 hours. It was just constant drizzle. And once the sun came up in the morning, the rain stopped, which made it a lot better. But the first half was very wet, which obviously made the course very boggy underfoot. By the end, it was a right mud bath for running in.
What was the terrain like?
It was mainly grassy. It's got a fair few hills, but after a while, because of the rain, the terrain was very boggy. But most of it was like grassy trails.
I was following the course times or the lap times from the U.S. here, and it looked like you led for most of the race. What was it like those first 4 or 5 hours, kind of as the rabbit in front?
I felt good because I felt really comfortable. I felt relaxed and felt a lot better than I thought I would at that period of the race. So I was confident with how I was going and the pace I was going that I would see it through, really. And it wasn't until the last lap that I got overtaken. So I was happy. I didn't mind being in front because I was comfortable with how I was going.
Tell me about when you were overtaken. That was during the 9th lap.
Yeah, it was during the 9th lap, about halfway round. I got overtaken, tried to pick up my pace, but by then I think due to maybe a lack of miles in the training and experience, I couldn't really hold the pace for much longer, so there wasn't a lot I could do other than keep going as hard as I could for as long as I could to the finish line and see what happened, really, which is what I'd done. But unfortunately, I still came a little short from first place, but I was still very happy with how it went.
Did you ever think, this was just a 7-hour race?
Yeah, that would have been great, but at the end of the day, it was 8 hours. But I'll learn for next time, and maybe a few things I can change, and you never know what can happen.
So you got overtaken by Tristan during your 9th lap, the 45-mile lap. And then after you had both, he finished his 9th lap about a minute before you did. What happened after you finished your 9th lap?
I came through my 9th lap. Tristan was in the pit area. I came over to my pit crew. Was looking at the time to see if I'd have enough time to go for a 10th lap. Tristan was waiting to see what I was going to do, because obviously at that stage he'd have won if I didn't go out for a 10th lap. I decided I'd give it a go, but as I started the 10th lap, I realised that there was no way I was going to make it round in the time due to fatigue. So unfortunately, I called it a day and had to head back. Were you able to finish that 10th lap, or did you just say, you know what, this isn't going to happen? I attempted it. I started it, but after probably about half a mile into it, I realised that I wasn't going to make it round within the cut-off time. So I thought, instead of putting myself through even more pain, that I'd head back to the pits and not complete the lap. So 2nd place for your first endurance event, your first toughest mudder. You got to be happy with that. Oh, I'm super happy with that. I'm very pleased with how it went, and I couldn't have really asked for much more. How are the obstacles out there? The obstacles are great. They're like always with tough mudders, really. They're all great. We had like Kong, Funky Monkey, Boa Constrictor, which is a new one for me. I've never done that before, so it was a bit of more of a mental one. Getting over it, going through the tunnel and into the water. And then we had pole dance. Don't know if you're familiar with that one in the States. I'd imagine you are, but that was one I've not seen in the UK before. So they brought some obstacles I hadn't seen, which was great, mixing it up and making it challenging. How do you view your strengths? Are you more of an obstacle guy? Are you more of a running guy? I'd say more of a running. There's probably a few things I can work on with the obstacles, but I've run like through my teenage years, so running's more of my background than the strength and obstacles. I want to go back to that 9th lap. You led most of the race. How did it feel when you could hear his footsteps or see him behind you on that lap? It was devastating to be overtaken and try and push, but there's nothing there. But I just thought, just keep going, because it's an obstacle course race. Anything could happen. All it would take is for Tristan to fall off an obstacle and run a penalty loop, and you never know. It could have been my win, which is the beauty of obstacle course racing. I think it makes it so exciting to the end, because the race isn't over until, or in that case, the time the 8 hours is up, or you cross the finish line in other obstacle course races. So I think that's what kept me going, and I always thought there's a possibility that it's not over until the last minute. It's amazing that in an 8-hour race, 45 miles down, it comes down to 1 minute difference. Yeah, that is crazy. I've been thinking that over my head the last day or so, how 8 hours and it comes down to 1 minute, which makes it exciting, I imagine, for the spectators to watch, because you never know who's going to win until the end. What was the last obstacle on the course? The last obstacle was Pyramid Scheme. So what was it like? Was it right by the finish line? Yeah, it was right by the finish line. It was probably 20 meters before the finish line. So what was it like? You see him 60 seconds in front of you doing Pyramid Scheme. You think, this is it, I got to do it? Yeah, basically it was, I've got to give it my all and try and catch him, but unfortunately it was not to be. But I dug deep and left it all out on the course. That's a good feeling. So it was a great feeling. Knowing that I gave it my all is all I can ask for, really. Do you have any plans to run any of the other toughest mudders this year? I'm looking at maybe running the toughest mudder in Germany, and that'll be it for this year. But next year, I think I might target a few more and see if maybe I can get out to the US and do a couple out there. With your top 5 finish, you qualified as an elite contender for World's Toughest Mudder. Have you thought about World's Toughest? Not this year, because unfortunately I'm getting, unfortunately the Tough Mudder, I'm getting married on the same weekend, so I won't be there this year, but definitely one I'd like to do in the future.
You can bring her with you.
I don't think she'd be too impressed. She was happy to stay up all night and pit for me, but I think that's one step too far.
Tom, do you have any sponsors or anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I run for a team called Mike's Gym, who supported me throughout the race, and we're also sponsored by Nocco, which is energy drinks company that kept me fueled throughout the race.
Tom, how can people find you on social media?
My Instagram is @TommyTRuns, and then on Facebook it's Tweddell OCR.
Tom, do you have any last thoughts on Europe's toughest mudder?
There was a great event, and I'll definitely be back running more Tough Mudder soon.
Tom Tweddell, thanks much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now let's talk about the third toughest mudder of 2018, Australia's toughest mudder. Australia's toughest mudder. Overall, 254 runners started the race. 202 men ran. 35 men ran 30 miles. 17% of men at Toughest Mudder Australia qualified as contenders. 52 women ran. 12 women ran 25 miles. 23% of women at Toughest Mudder Australia qualified as contenders. Overall, 47 of 254 qualified as contenders, or 19% at Toughest Mudder Australia. Lachlan Dansie won first place at Australia's Toughest Mudder. He also just won the 24-hour Enduro Race for the fourth consecutive year just last week. It's time to talk with Lachlan Dansie. Let's go to the phones. Lachlan Dansie, good to talk to you again.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thanks for the call. Yeah, no, definitely.
You just won Australia's Toughest Mudder last weekend. How do you feel?
I feel pretty, a little bit tender and sore as you expect, but actually not too bad. I backed up pretty good. I definitely I ran a really stupid race, but managed to get away with it in the end. So feeling good about that.
Tell me about that. Did you make mistakes, or you had a bad strategy?
Well, I sort of I made a ton of mistakes, to be honest with you. I think the first one I made was before the race. I was being a complete tight ass and didn't worry about booking a hotel room or anything up there. And so I flew up after work on Saturday afternoon and then sort of sat in a McDonald's car park in my rented Hyundai i30 trying to get a couple of hours sleep before the race, and that didn't really work. So didn't get the rest before the race I would have liked. And then probably the biggest mistake I made was on the first lap. I dressed ready for obstacles, so I had a wetsuit top on, in addition to my typical shorts and compression socks. The weather wasn't too bad though, so probably didn't need that. And then on the first lap, there were no obstacles for the first hour, so we were actually running, and probably I guess halfway through that lap, no one had really taken off at a super hard pace. So I sort of thought to myself, you know what, no one seems to be going after this green sprint lap bib. So, bugger it, I'm gonna have a go. So probably about, I guess, the third or fourth mile, I picked up the pace and probably ran in about maybe 6-minute mile pace just to put a little bit of a gap on the rest of the guys to get that green bib. So managed to get the green bib and, so get a free Tough Mudder entry. But in the scheme of things, it was probably a stupid idea going after it. But you do those things, so...
Did you?
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
The main problem wasn't that I was redlining. I wasn't running too hard. It was that I was wearing that wetsuit shirt. So I was wearing gear ready to get wet, and I was just running hard. So it wasn't actually that my heart rate was too high, but I was just sweating buckets, and sweating buckets that early on was, that's gonna get me cramps pretty quick. So I did the sprint lap, and then sort of slowed the pace down, get the sort of tried to cool down. So the next lap, the second lap, I made a complete meal of that as well. They'd given me the green sprint bib, and I'd thrown that over the top of my wetsuit shirt. Was running along, but I was being way too hot. Tried to take my wetsuit shirt off and had put the green bib back on, and then I realised halfway through the lap that in taking off the wetsuit shirt, putting the green bib on, I'd actually lost my main race bib, and I just got paranoid that not having my race bib, I was going to get disqualified. I'm like, what's going on? So I sort of fluffed around a bit looking for it, and then thought, you know what, I know where I've probably lost it. I'll pick it up on the next lap. So kept running. On the next lap, I came through and I couldn't find it, but fortunately, someone had handed it in, and my pit crew person had that. I sort of thought, look, I've got the green bib on, so that should be all right. But yeah, so that was the first couple of laps. I sort of made a bit of a meal of it, then managed to sort of settle into a little bit of a rhythm, and yeah, so there's a few other things I made mistakes of. I sort of stuffed up my shoes as well. Had a lot of foot issues wearing sort of thinner shoes, like minimal shoes that were bruising my feet. So I changed my shoes about halfway through. I probably thought before the race that being an 8-hour race, I probably wouldn't change my shoes, but yeah, the feet were getting really swollen, and definitely needed to do that.
What kind of shoes did you change into? Like, how thick were they?
I actually changed into a pair of Hoka Speed Instincts that are pretty thick shoes. But yeah, my feet were just getting bruised. They were getting sore. I was wearing the Innovate Talons. There were parts of the course that were muddy and really did need that grip, but then there were other parts that were pretty rocky, and yeah, so just getting the bruised feet. Changing shoes was definitely a good move. So that helped me out. A couple of other things, not so much mistakes that I made, but the first few laps, you're sort of racing through the obstacles, and the ones where you sort of, like the Block Ness Monster, wasn't really sort of hanging around too long, and, felt that I was going to get bad karma. So probably I guess the fourth or fifth lap, I thought I had a bit of time up my sleeves. So I stopped, and I spent a bit more time at the Block Ness Monster helping a couple people through. So probably 3-4 minutes helping people through and helping people through Everest. Just because the first couple of laps, I'd been in that race mode and didn't want to get the bad karma. But I wasn't as far in front as I thought I was. I didn't realise that the guys behind me were so close. And so I got a bit lucky, I think, on the final lap. When I went out to do lap 9, I sort of had in the back of my head that the second and third guys probably weren't doing the 9th lap. I just sort of misjudged how close they were. And then on that last lap, I was lucky that I sort of was running with a guy who he was doing his 7th lap, a guy called Paul Trumbull. And, we sort of had a good, just running along together, helping each other out. And if we hadn't been running with him, I probably would have walked a bit more of it. And in the end, I was only 5 minutes in front, so it could have made a bit more of a interesting finish if I sort of hadn't been running along with him and keeping at least a sort of reasonable pace.
Tell me about the obstacles. I heard that they would open them and close them kind of randomly all night long.
Yeah, it was. I was, to be honest, a little bit disappointed that some of the obstacles weren't open as long as I probably thought they were going to be. So for the first hour, there were no obstacles open. And then in the second hour, they opened up, I guess, most of them, the Block Ness Monster, the Everest, but they hadn't opened up Funky Monkey, and they hadn't opened up Leap of Faith, Kong Infinity, or Arctic Enema. That second lap, I was actually, sort of looking at my time and thinking, oh, look, I'll get in front of Arctic Enema just because I hate that one. So I pushed in. I got to that Arctic Enema the second time around at 1 o'clock. in the end, they didn't even open that one up then. So it was sort of, I don't know why I was pushing for it. Then, I can't actually remember the order and the times that exactly they all opened, but they had some issues with, at the very end, with Kong Infinity. So that I only actually had 2 cracks at that, and apparently there was one of the rings had fallen off, so they had to actually close the obstacle to do some maintenance on it. So, and that one didn't open up again. So that was a little disappointing. Rope-a-dope was open all night. So Everest and Block Ness were open all night. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head which ones weren't open that long. But so Arctic Enema didn't seem to actually be open that long. I think I did Arctic Enema maybe 3 times.
So you ran 9 laps, and you did Kong Infinity twice and Arctic Enema 3 times. Yeah.
So Arctic Enema, I'm pretty sure it was only 3 times that I did it. So and Kong Infinity, I only did that 2 times.
How would you rate the difficulty of the whole course, like terrain and obstacles and weather conditions? How difficult of a night was it?
Look, the weather was pretty nice. There were patches where it was cold, but it wasn't certainly wasn't as cold as I thought it was going to be. The actual course itself did have more elevation than I thought. It did have a couple of decent climbs in there, a couple of decent hills. As for the obstacles, on the second time going through the Funky Monkey, I was, there was a few laps in, so I was starting to get pretty tired. And so the second lap, it was really, second time doing it, just managed to get across. And then on the third time doing it, was really battling and ended up falling off the Funky Monkey, but had spent, a good minute just trying to hang on and grind through it. And I was a little bit disappointed because when I went and I did the penalty was really short. And I was like, why did I spend so much energy and so much time trying to complete this obstacle for such a short penalty? So I actually, being again in race mode, took a bit of a pretty lame effort on that obstacle the next couple of times. I just did a couple of monkey bars and sort of fell in. Just because it was probably quicker to do the penalty on that one than do the actual obstacle. So probably I would have liked to have seen the penalties be a little harder. But I guess that's just the way it was.
You ran 45 miles in 8 hours and 18 minutes. Second place was Jared Cola with 45 miles, 5 minutes behind you. And then third place was Brody Gardner with 40 miles in 7 hours and 22 minutes. Tell me about the race between the three of you.
So we spoke about Jared last week, and I knew that Jared would be super strong. He, as I said, he was the adventure racer that, he goes and does 3-day races. Also, Brody Gardner, I'd never met him before, but, with the $5,000 prize money, I knew that there'd be someone coming out of, the unknown. Brody he's a professional ex-terra triathlete, so hadn't done a Tough Mudder before, but just, professional athlete, super fit. So at the start of the race, for the sort of first couple of laps, we were, I guess, back and forth. So the first lap I sort of took off and went for the sprint lap. And then the second and third lap, we were all pretty close together. Just sort of seesawing from, first, second and third. It was probably about the fourth lap that I pulled away a little bit. And I didn't know who was actually coming second, if it was Brody or if it was Jared. So I didn't see them until the end of the night after the fourth lap. When I went out to do my last lap, I was told that Brody was coming second, and I didn't know where Jared was until till I actually crossed the finish line and found out he was only 5 minutes behind me. So
that's pretty well. The last lap, did you feel any pressure, like if I don't finish this 9th lap, like I'm worried about Jared, or did you know you had it in hand at that time?
Well, I knew I had plenty of time to finish the last lap. So the last lap, I was watching my watch. I knew I've got heaps of time to get this lap in. I didn't feel the pressure that I probably should have. I didn't realise he was as close as he was. Whether I would have had that little extra kick in the legs if I'd seen him coming. I probably had a little bit there, but who knows? Like he had such a strong finish. I actually had a look at the breakdown mile by mile, and so for the last 10 miles, I think every one of his miles was faster than mine. So he made up a hell of a lot of time on me in that last part of the race. So if it come down to a sprint finish, could have been interesting.
So Lachlan, you won the very first Australia's Toughest Mudder. How'd you feel when you crossed the finish line?
Oh, I felt awesome. No, I felt really good. So it's such a. I think the thing with the event is that everyone's there cheering. Everyone was in good spirits. The Tough Mudder put on an awesome event. So despite those couple of things with some of the obstacles. It was really well run, really well organised, and I've got to say that the volunteers out there from midnight to 8 a.m. There was one guy, one of the volunteers on Hold Your Wood, and the whole time for the whole 8 hours he was just pumping everyone up, was just on fire. So to come through and to win, everyone was cheering. It did feel really good. So it was ecstatic to get away with it.
Every time I run World's Toughest Mudder, there's one or two certain volunteers that even if you don't know their name, like you'll remember them for years and maybe the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the Hold Your Wood guy. Like you get up there, you'd be carrying the log, and he's like cheering, "You got this, keep going." The whole night, every single lap, he was pumping everyone up, and you could just hear him. He was doing it for everyone. So for 6-7 hours, he was just constantly going. So I regret I can't remember what his name was. So to give him a shout out. But the guy on Hold Your Wood, he was awesome. But in saying that, they were all awesome. Everyone was everyone was out there really supportive. And the good thing about, I guess, being in Australia is we're pretty small in terms of the obstacle racing community. And as you run around, you do know people, and so people are shouting out, and how you going, and you give them a shout back. So being pretty small, you do know a lot of the people that you're racing with, and so I guess that gives it a little bit of an extra buzz to the event.
Your next race is the 24-hour Enduro World Championships in 2 weeks. How do you feel going into that?
At the moment, I'm feeling pretty sore and pretty tender. I've got a little bit of. I've come away with just a small issue with one of my feet, but I'm pretty sure I'll be right in 2.5 weeks. So hopefully we'll be sweet for that. So just a small niggle injuries. So hopefully we'll be okay.
Lachlan, is there anything you'd like to plug or any other shout outs you want to give? Just I want to definitely thank every person that was there who gave me encouragement in the race, and congratulate everyone who did it. Congratulations to the support crew. And in terms of thanking people, my partner Naomi, she was there supporting me all through the night on the pit crew. So massive shout out to her, and thanks for all the effort she put into that. But yeah, congratulations to everyone that had a go, and thanks to Tough Mudder for putting on a great event. Definitely hope that it comes back and they have it again soon. Lachlan, any last thoughts on Australia's Toughest Mudder?
Mate, it was tough. It was fun, but it was tough. It's a good event.
Lachlan Dansie, thanks much.
No worries. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Well done, Lachlan. Now let's talk about the fourth and final Tough Mudder held so far this year, Toughest Mudder Midwest. Overall, 527 runners started Toughest Mudder Midwest. 436 men ran. 147 men ran 30 miles. 34% of men at Toughest Mudder Midwest qualified as contenders. 91 women ran. 41 women ran 25 miles. 45% of women qualified as contenders. Overall, 188 of 527 qualified as contenders, or 36%. Kristopher Mendoza finished in second place at Toughest Mudder South in Texas. Kris ran 50 miles in 8 hours and 6 minutes, about 12 minutes behind the first place Ryan Atkins. It's time to talk with Kristopher Mendoza. Let's go to the phones.
Kristopher Mendoza, thanks for coming back.
5-star Will, it is good to be back. That's so soon.
A 5-star Will is kind of like fetch. It's just not happening.
It's gonna happen. You know, I'm gonna make 5-star Will happen.
I don't think so. My dad texted me after he heard that episode. He's like, 5-star Will. I was like, yeah, Dad, no, it's not happening.
Yes, if your dad's on board, it's gonna happen. Although, just do not compare me to Gretchen Wieners from Mean Girls. We're not the same, but I love the reference.
Kris, you finished in second place at Toughest Mudder Midwest with 50 miles in 8 hours and 6 minutes.
Yes, I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm the first loser out of everyone, so I got that going for me.
You know what? I was going to talk about this at the very end of the race. Yes, Atkins beat you, but you only finished 12 minutes behind him. That's the best anyone's ever done against him in an 8-hour race or longer.
Oh, really?
That's a true story.
Oh, that's good to know. But he was very quick to remind me that I did get second after the race. So there was no, time where I felt like I kind of won or anything like that. You know, he quickly reminded me that he won. I was like, thanks, dude.
So you guys started out together, and you were actually together for a bit of the beginning of the race. What was the beginning of the race like?
The beginning of the race, I just kind of planned on, I didn't really know who else was going to try to push the pace, but my goal was to kind of just try to stick with Ryan as long as I could type thing. Just kind of see how he was feeling. Actually the first lap, we were just running together, not necessarily at the very, very front, but maintaining good pace. And this one guy up that there's one steep hill, and he's just huffing and puffing up this hill. And we're just me and Ryan are looking over at this guy dude, are you okay? This is an 8-hour race. You got to calm down. We got to chill. Got to make sure you pace yourself, which is pretty funny. But, after that, we kind of settled in and just kind of kept a groove going for those first, I don't know, I think we ran together for the first 4 laps or so. You don't want to push too hard, but I knew that this race I had the best chance of doing well. So I wanted to make sure I left everything out there.
So you and him, you were together for the first 3 or 4 laps. Did you ever think hey, I got a shot at this. I might be able to beat this guy?
Honestly, no. I was just hey, that's nice, Ryan, kind of chilling with me. I mean, I thought that there was a good chance that, I always say, there's always a possibility that something could happen. People get hurt, people have stomach issues. But I never was really thinking like that. I just put myself in the best position that I can to win or to do as best as I can. And that's pretty much what I did. So, those first 4 laps or so went pretty well. I failed an obstacle, and then he kind of took off. And I knew at that point that I didn't have enough gas in the tank to really make up that gap. So I kind of just settled into where I was at, and knew that every lap I kind of wanted to maintain a good amount of consistency while keeping the people behind me, obviously behind me. So, yeah.
What was the course like? You mentioned that one hill. What was it, hilly, mostly flat?
No, it was mostly flat. I would say I heard that it was like around 500 feet of gain per lap. It was pretty flat, not very muddy. A lot of it was like wide, I would say like double track or almost like fire road width. You can pretty much drive a car through most of it, the areas that we had to. Some of it was a little rocky, but more like small pebbles that might irritate your feet, but nothing too bad. You really were able to open up and run fast. So I think that was a huge difference between here in Austin is you could run the entire course. I mentioned one hill, and it was right before Kong. And it was super short, and for me, it was just like a perfect time to hike and just get some nutrition in at that time. So every lap, that was the hill where I would definitely take in some nutrition halfway through the lap and just take some time to walk.
What did that pork soda obstacle end up being?
That was just Turduncan or whatever the heck it's called. It was the same thing. You just like jump into like a little mud pit, and then in the middle there was some barbed wire that you'd kind of crawl, but it was like slanted at an angle, so you'd kind of crawl upwards, and then you'd slide down into the water below. Yeah, that's all it was. And there was no devil's beard, because I know we talked about that last time.
Oh, nice.
Which was a life. Oh, yeah. So I was super stoked about that. Maybe they listened to the podcast and knew we hated it. That's probably what it was.
I'm sure that's probably what it was. I was going to
what it was.
I was going to do a whole episode about pork soda, like the brand new obstacle.
Yeah.
I was going to call it World's Toughest Porkcast.
Ooh. Well, maybe they can make an actual new obstacle called pork soda and not the same thing that we've already seen. But, I mean, it was fine. That was a fine obstacle. I'm just glad they didn't have devil's beard, which I actually didn't realize till afterwards. Just, kind of reflecting on the race, so...
I heard you were pretty popular on the course. You were getting serenaded?
Kristopher Mendoza.
I was getting serenaded all night long. And so here was the plan. So I told you last time I was going to write something special on my bib. And I sent you a picture of this, and what I wrote is I wrote nice guy on it.
Kristopher Mendoza is a really nice guy.
So the goal was, I just wanted to see who would actually be able to tell it was me. So, like, in the middle of the night, you can't really see people. You just see their bibs, maybe, like, maybe you know how they run, roughly. But there was a few times in the middle of the night where it would be, like, people would be reading my bib. They'd read, nice guy. And they're like, dude, Mendoza, is that you? And I'm like, nice, you got it. And then they'd start singing my song, of course.
Kristopher Mendoza.
But honestly, like, I was loving it out there. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, I did get serenaded a lot.
You'll let them sing for you, but they got to work for it.
Exactly. No, especially actually my last like couple laps, I was really hurting. And some people were like, I know you don't want me to sing. I'm like, no. I need some songs right now. I need anything to get me through these last 2 laps.
That just kind of happened like with you and Keith Allen, but it's become its own thing, and no one else has that.
I know. I don't know why, but it has happened. So I guess I'll have to embrace it. But yeah.
You finished your last lap at 8:06 a.m., your 50th mile. I saw you cross the finish line. You looked very emotional. Tell me about the finish line.
Yeah. For me, it was. I feel like ever since World's Toughest 2000, what is it, 16? Yeah. I feel like that race kind of put me on the map, and since then, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say like all my races have been disappointments, but I guess there's always that expectation, or you feel like there's an expectation for you to do really, really well. And I think that this is like one of the first races that I felt like I actually put things together and I did a good job. Like, I left it all out there, and just like that feeling of like putting it all out there on those 8 hours and getting second was just like crazy. It was an awesome feeling. And I mean, honestly, like when you have Ryan there, second place kind of feels like a win, to be honest. So, there was a point where I came into the pit, and I think it was like mile 35 or something. Could have been 30. But I come in and I ask my crew, I'm like, hey, Ann, like, what are my splits? Expecting her to say, like, oh, Jesse's this far behind you. But the first thing that came out of her mouth was, Ryan's only 3 minutes ahead. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah. And she just like handed me my water bottle and my food. And she's like, just go. And it was like, and then she kind of yelled how far Jesse was like behind me. She's like, oh yeah, like Jesse's only like 2 minutes behind you too. And at that time is kind of where I like started really pushing hard, because I was like, wow, I was like close for a while, but
you guys were all three of you were bunched up like super close. I don't know if you could see each other or not, but like there was like 5 minutes between Atkins and Bruce for like at least the first half of the race.
Yeah, we were actually, we had like lunch after, or like later that day, all three of us, and we didn't see each other the whole race. I mean, me and Ryan saw each other the first 20 miles, but we never saw Jesse the whole time. So, I never saw him, and it was kind of crazy because I started going back and found out that how close we were the whole time. So I was like, okay, but yeah, I knew that he was close, and then by the end we were kind of spread out a little bit. So I knew my last lap I could relax a little, but not too much. I was just really like super stoked, really grateful for like everyone out on the course who supported me, for Ann Clifford for crewing me, and just for like giving me splits throughout the whole night. Because Jesse Bruce, who was finished third, he was pretty close to me. I would say through miles like 35 or so. I'll be able to gap a little bit at the end, but it was definitely a race where I really had to dig deep and, push, especially those last 3 laps. So it was an awesome race, and I was just like really happy that it kind of all came together for me.
It looked like you might have had tears in your eyes when you kind of collapsed to your knees at the finish line there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, yeah, my eyes were swelling up a little bit. Because there's something about crossing that line, the finish line at the end, when you know that you've left it all out there, and that things have worked out, and it's not just like the race, but it's also like the hard work you put in outside of it. And there's a lot of people that might like doubt you or not think that you're, I guess like shouldn't be there in that position or whatever. And just to kind of, have a result that proves otherwise is pretty special. And to get that 50 miles was also like an added bonus, just to, be one of the people who's finally hit that mark. So it was really, really cool. And I don't think I would have done it if Jesse wasn't chasing me so hard, to be honest. So I got to give a little credit to him, because I was like, gosh, dang it, do I have to go out for another lap? And I knew Jesse would go out and he'd be able to finish another one. So, I just kept pushing. And then like Ryan ahead of me, actually at one point, he was only like a few minutes ahead of me. So I knew that there was a chance if anything happened to him that there was a possibility that I could pass him, but that didn't happen. But, I was still like so happy with this race.
You mentioned people doubting you. Do you have like haters online? Do you have people DMing you mean stuff?
Not to my face, but I do know that people, have, I guess, felt like I might have not deserved the 100 miles at World's Toughest back in 2016. And, it's not like people are talking like trash on me all the time, but you hear about people saying stuff like that, and it's just like, well, you try to ignore it, and you try to help it fuel your training to like prove them wrong, and just to be able to kind of like put together a race where you finally felt like you did a good job. Felt good.
I'm going to read you the names of 4 elite Tough Mudder athletes, and I want you to tell me what they have in common. Ryan Atkins, Chad Trammell, John Albin, and joining those 3 guys this past weekend is Kristopher Mendoza. I'll give you a hint.
100. Oh, okay. 100 miles at World's Toughest and 50 miles at Toughest.
That is correct.
Yeah.
You four are the only people to run 100 at World's Toughest and 50 miles at an 8-hour toughest mudder.
And you know what's... Wait, let me think about this. Oh, yeah. And you know what the funny thing about that is?
Tell me.
I'm the only one who's never won a race. Yeah.
Well, if we wanted to get technical.
Yeah, no. No, but seriously, that's like... I didn't actually think about that until you just said it. And I actually had to think about that. That's pretty cool. That's really cool, actually. Because those are all people that I actually, like, look up to as far as, like, in racing. People that kind of keep me going, just like seeing what they're doing out in the running and OCR world and me wanting to kind of be like them. So it's really special to be like considered in that realm. So
I don't know if you remember, but before the race, you kind of challenged Rhea Coble. Do you know how she did? How you stacked up against her?
Oh, I know, because I lapped her. Yeah, I actually saw her out on course. It was like our very last lap. I think, she ended up getting like 45 miles. She did great.
Yeah, you beat her by 1 lap.
Yeah. I saw her the last lap, and we were talking and had a good time out there. It was good to finally see her out on course for once, because I feel like I never see her. So, we made a few jokes, and she actually didn't even need to run that last lap, but I could tell she was hurting, and I was just like, we're almost done with this. Just get through this last lap. And it was great because I got to see her right before she crossed the finish line too. So, it was awesome to see her out there. I mean, she's just like such a good friend that it was really cool to see her do really well too.
I heard you were thirsty after the race and were hunting for champagne.
I always go hunting for champagne, but this time I had my own, okay? This time I had my own, and so let's be real. So I know that Ray doesn't drink, so I know that I can just go up and have her champagne. So she gave it right to me, but I was like, well, I actually have an extra bottle. So I'm not an alcoholic, so I decided, to actually give away my second bottle. So, but of course, you always go champagne hunting. That's all you ever want.
I heard you were after Atkins champagne too, though.
I was not after his champagne.
In the trash or something? No. Is this not a true thing?
Oh, who told you this? This is ridiculous. Okay, so Ryan, I put my champagne down while I was going to do a little interview, and I come back, my champagne's gone, and he's like, "Oh, I threw it away. It's in the trash." Because there was 3 right next to each other, and he's like, "I put it in the trash." So I go look in the trash. It's sitting on the very top. Nothing's touching it. It's fine. And so I take it back out because I really wanted some. I still had a lot of champagne in there, and I still needed to drink it. Okay? I know that sounds disgusting, but it's not as bad. And I just ran 50 miles. I felt like I deserved a little champagne. And, I shared it with friends. Whether they knew it was in the trash or not, I don't know. But, it's still good. Okay?
Your trash booze?
Yeah, whatever. It's fine. It's classy. That's the classy kind of person I am.
Chris, what are your next few races?
Oh, actually, I am running Scotland Tougher Mudder in 2 weeks or something.
Really?
Because I was supposed to go run the toughest there, booked a whole trip with my family, and then they're like, "Hey, toughest mudder's canceled." So I'm going to go run Tougher, and my whole family, we're going to go run Tough Mudder afterwards. And so that should be a good time. This is my parents' first full Tough Mudder. They ran the half last year in Las Vegas and in October, and now they're going to step up to the full distance.
So their first full will be in Scotland.
In Scotland, yeah.
That's pretty great.
Get a little vacation out of it. Yeah, it's going to be sweet. So I'm stoked about that. And then we have the Never Summer 100K at the end of July. So those are my next 2.
Will you be at Toughest Boston or Toughest Berlin?
I will not be at either of those. I have some residency stuff I got to do for Boston and Berlin. Well, that's kind of far. But I'll be at the West. I'll be at West.
The NorCal?
Yeah.
You mentioned your mom. She left a very nice review for the show on Apple Podcasts. Tell her I said thank you.
Oh, Oh, well, that's very nice of her. She actually does listen to your show like all the time. It's really funny. It's great because now like I don't have to like inform her about all this stuff that's happening in Tough Mudder Land. And sometimes she tells me about stuff if I haven't listened to like an episode or something yet.
Right.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Keeping up on the news.
No, she knows all about it. Yeah.
My mom listens too, and she's like, I did not like that one person you had on. He had a potty mouth.
Oh, yeah. I don't like Keith Allen either. He's a jerk. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. He does. Need to clean that up. Okay, so Will, I actually have a funny thing. So you know how you said you want to keep running for the 8 hours, you want to run like fast, and you gave like that piece of advice or whatever?
Sure, yeah. You send the worst picture of yourself to somebody.
Yeah.
And you tell them.
You know what else?
Go ahead.
You know what else keeps you running fast in the middle of the night? When you come up to someone and you're talking to them, and then you're like, oh, I can't tell who I'm talking to. Who am I talking to? And then the person's like, hey, it's Bubbles the Clown. And it's the scariest freaking thing when you're running next to someone, talking in a normal voice, and all of a sudden they put on their clown voice. You can't see their face. And it's just terrifying. Just imagine being stuck in the middle of the night with a clown talking to you. Yeah, there's nothing that motivates you more. Not even Ryan beating you that motivates you to run faster and get away from him. Was he Gregory, you're scary, and I had to run away from him real quick.
Was he wearing the mask?
Thankfully not, unless I think I would have died. But no, he did not have the mask on. But it was pretty funny and kind of scary.
Yeah, that would make me run too, I think.
Yeah, that was like my, in the middle of the night, holy crap, let's run fast. But then he didn't look so bad in the daylight, you know, and I could actually see his face. It wasn't as bad.
He's not a scary man. He's just that voice.
No, it's not. He's not a scary man at all. But that voice was terrifying.
Kris, what companies are you working with these days?
Mainly, I'm working with Merrell right now. Is the big one. So yeah. They've been really great about giving me, outfitting me with my shoes, a lot of my tops and bottoms, running gear. And then they've kind of helped hook me up with some ultimate direction gear as well. So helping me purchase some packs and things like that. So those are kind of like the key things that you really need for these races. You just need good gear that's going to get you through, and a good kind of pack that you can use to make sure that you're staying hydrated and keeping up with your nutrition throughout the race.
Do you carry that hydration pack through the race?
Actually, so I just tried something new this time. I was wearing I think it's the Ultimate Direction race belt, I believe it's called. And I've never worn a racing belt in a race before, but I found that these overnight races, I wasn't drinking 2 bottles like I would if I were like a pack, like a full pack. And these belts, you're able to put in 1 water bottle and like pretty much 1 food item. And I actually found that was perfect. So that's I would use that up every lap. And then every lap I would just get a new bottle and like a new Cliff Block or something. And that worked perfectly. So I used to use like a full pack with 2 bottles in it, but I found for me with lap times, that was just a little too much. And so obviously this seemed to work out.
Kris, how can people find you on social media?
They can find me at kdoza04 on Instagram and my name on Facebook.
How can people contact you for dental services?
They can instant message me or whatever. They can AIM me directly through AOL Instant Messenger, because we all still have that.
I don't think that's a thing anymore, Kris.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm pretty sure I still have whatever name I used to have. Or they can tweet me. That's fine. I don't even know what my Twitter is, but they can tweet me.
Flossing is just a big scam, right?
Of course. Okay, flossing feels amazing, and it's actually just as important as brushing. I don't know what people are thinking. I mean, I know that there's some people out there that believe in all this oil pulling stuff and all these other things, but honestly, just floss every night, brush your teeth twice a day. You'll be fine.
Wait, someone's saying something about flossing in the back?
No, I think that was just some random person talking in the background. Maybe he's yelled something about flossing.
Kris, do you have any last thoughts on Toughest Mudder Midwest?
Yeah, I have a funny story real quick.
Go for it.
We get done with the race. So I told you Ryan, made sure that I knew that I got second. We get done with the race, and now Ryan's actually a really funny guy. A lot of people think he's like really serious, and just like all about racing. No. So me, Ryan, and Lindsay were staying at the same house. We're driving back in the car after we finished, all feeling really good. I'm feeling really happy. Lindsay's happy. Ryan's happy. Sunto is also happy. Lindsay's like, wow, guys, we have a real car of winners here. Like, said it very nicely because she's like such a nice person. And I'm like, yeah, like on the inside, I was like, yeah, like we all did a great job. Ryan turns around, looks at both of us. He's like, actually, I'm the only winner here. You two both got second. And that's where, he just launched that on me, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It was like the funniest thing ever. Also, he's a jerk. But anyways, that's what I feel about Toughest Michigan. That's the perfect wrap-up. And yeah, he's still the champion, and I got second. Whatever. Who cares?
Kris Mendoza, thanks much.
Thank you, 5-star Will. 5 stars.
Well done, Kris. Thank you for taking the time. All right, now I want to look at those 4 races and break down the numbers a little bit. When I'm putting the toughest courses next to each other, the first question people ask me is, which toughest was the toughest? And there's no perfect way to tell. In 2017, there were 6 toughest mudders, and there were 4 people that ran all 6 of those toughest mudders. Jim Campbell, Sarah Knight, Mark James, and Melissa Sharkbait Dugan. I talked with them for an episode of the podcast last year we called Which Toughest Was the Toughest? And it was great. It was a good episode. One of my favorite episodes that we've done. Those 4 different people all did the exact same toughest races, and I got 4 totally different answers to the toughest question. As far as we had them rank each of the 6 races, hardest to easiest, and totally different answers from all 4 of them. So now they agreed to some of these we knew were tougher, and some of these they agreed were not so tough, but none of them thought the exact same thing. All that to say, there's a great quote that is attributed to Mark Twain. Tell the kids to put on their earmuffs for a second. Mark Twain said there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. So I'm not trying to say anything with these numbers. I'm just telling you what they are. We all want the toughest we did to be the toughest. That's just human nature. One way we compare the courses is by total contender percentage. Contender status is reached by a man that completes 30 miles or a woman that completes 25 miles. The higher the contender percentage, the easier the course was. By percentage, here are the 4 races with the least contenders. So I'm going to read these from toughest to least tough. The total contender percentage at Toughest Mudder South was 17%. Australia had 19%. The UK had 22%. And the Midwest had 36%. Again, that number is from the entire field. When you look at everyone who started the race, from elite to the people who did 1 lap, South had 17% to get contender status. Australia had 19%. UK had 22%. The Midwest had 36%. There's another way to measure the toughness of the course, and that's by looking solely at the elites. If we take the top 5 men and the top 5 women and add their mileages together, and then divide that number by 10, we will get the average elite mileage. Now, again, I'm going to read these from toughest to least tough. At Toughest Mudder Australia, the average elite mileage was 36.5 miles. At South, it was 39.5 miles. At Toughest UK, it was 42 miles. And at the Midwest, it was 43 miles. Again, this is the average elite mileage. We're only looking at the top 5 men and the top 5 women. In Australia, 36.5. South was 39.5. UK was 42 miles. Midwest was 43 miles. When we look at those two metrics side by side, our average elite mileage and the total contender percentage, a few things leap out. The first is that the order is different. If we're looking at contender percentage from toughest to least tough, it goes South, Australia, UK, Midwest. Toughest to least tough, South, Australia, UK, Midwest. When we look at average elite mileage, the first two swap positions, Australia and South. Average elite mileage goes Australia, South, UK, Midwest. Third and fourth are still the same, but the margins are much closer. I want to talk about third and fourth in a minute. So we can't definitively say whether Australia or South was toughest. Honestly, we can't definitively say it anyway, but I feel comfortable saying the toughest mudder so far this year was either Australia or South in Texas. And it'll probably come down to your opinion as to which one was tougher. There were a lot of athletes, not a lot. There was Allison Ty ran both of them. Jim Campbell ran both of them. There's probably more that I don't know of that ran both Australia and Texas. One of those two so far was the tougher of the toughest of the four. With third and fourth place, both of our metrics put UK as the third toughest and Midwest as the fourth toughest. But look at the differences. The total contender percentage for the UK was 22%. Of everyone that ran Toughest Mudder UK, 22% of them got contender status. Total contender percentage for the Midwest was 36%. So the Midwest was way easier, right? 22% UK, 36% Midwest. Maybe, but maybe not. Look at the average elite mileage for Toughest UK. The average elite mileage for Toughest UK was 42 miles. The average elite mileage for Midwest was 43 miles. That's basically a wash. According to the mileage of the elites, UK and Midwest were basically the same difficulty-wise. Here's what I think happened. The UK had more than 200 more runners than Midwest. People that want to run Toughest Mudder in the US have 4 options. People in the UK that want to run Toughest have one good option in the UK. They also have Germany and Australia, which probably isn't a great option for them. What I think happened is the course difficulty between Midwest and UK was about the same. The UK just attracted a much bigger group of people there that were there for the experience and less worried about getting contender status, which is great for them. It's great. The more people there, the better. But it messes up my post-race numbers, people. There's no such thing as an easy Toughest Mudder. You're out there for 8 hours going round and round in circles. Whether you do 5 miles or 10 miles or 45 or 50 miles, there's no such thing as an easy Toughest Mudder. If you ran an easy Toughest Mudder, it's because you weren't running Toughest Mudder, or you weren't running enough, or you weren't running hard enough. And that's on you, not Tough Mudder. If you have questions about the numbers, or if you've looked at them yourself and you think you have a new angle on them, or how to parse the data, I would love to hear from you. Email me at willhicks@gmail.com. If you enjoy hearing the numbers, could you do me a favor? Go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show and tell me you enjoy the statistics. That will let me know I should keep tracking this stuff. So in summary, the toughest Mudder so far, it's either Australia or South. They're neck and neck with each other. Next toughest, UK, and just behind them is the Midwest. So it's like 1A and 1B is South and Australia. In third place, is UK, and in like third B is Midwest. Special thanks to our guests this week, Tom Tweddell, Lachlan Dansie, and Kristopher Mendoza. Well done. Tom and Lachlan, I owe you two an apology. It took me way longer than I planned to air our interviews. Thank you for being patient. You are too kind. Congratulations again to Lachlan winning that Enduro 24 with 100 miles. I really hope, Lachlan, I hope you make it out to Atlanta for World's Toughest Mudder this year. I would love to see how Lachlan and Ryan Atkins stack up with each other. Throw in a little bit of John Albin and Mendoza and Killian, and baby, you've got a stew. Congratulations again to Allison Ty on her trifecta, because it sounds like trifecta. Matt really wants that to catch on, you guys. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. After you leave a review, shoot me an email, willhicks@gmail.com. I will thank you personally. We'll see you next time. Go spend time with someone you love.
Kristopher Mendoza is a really nice guy, and that might be why that he got zero airtime. While Tough Mudder was on CBS, and then he decided it was time to see me next, yo. 100 miles make you an orange jacket star, but if you wanna flex with me, you'll have to see these bars, kid. Now for anybody questioning my rhymes, I'll spit a little taste so we can leave that shit behind. Mendoza. Please train with Wesley Kerr some more so you can go from third to fourth. Mendoza.